So, to be honest, this is quite damning, and I'm actually surprised this hasn't gained national media attention. But as usual with Brexit, the EU elections coming up, things like this can get quite hidden. But I think this needs to be at least brought to some attention, and I think that it's really worth talking about. So this is from my own local town paper, the Barnsley Chronicle, and it's Kids in Need of Emergency Food. So a damning new report which looks at residents' continued reliance on food banks has revealed that thousands of Barnsley children are on the cusp of going hungry, having received emergency food parcels. The Trussell Trust, which supports food banks at locations including Goldthorpe, Wunwell, Athersley, Darfield, Penistone, Hoyland, Royston, Worsborough Common and Barnsley Town Centre, warned in its report, which looks at between April 2018 to March 2019, represents just a snapshot of the overall picture due to the number of standalone food banks run by churches and community groups which aren't included. The Chronicle can reveal that more than 8,000 emergency food parcels were handed out in the period, representing an 18.8% rise, with 3,770 people being helped in the Barnsley East constituency alone, including 1,300 children. However, the report shows that the picture is the same across the town, with about 3,000 children receiving parcels that contain 3 days' supplies. Barnsley East MP Stephanie Peacock said, more and more people are forced to look to food banks to put food on their table. The rise in the food bank and their use is an utter disgrace that thousands of families and children across Barnsley are unable to afford food tells you everything you need to know about the Tories' thoughts on communities like ours. And it's true. They generally don't care. And if you want to say, oh, Labour don't care either, there was tons of investment opportunity during the Labour government into Barnsley. And the other thing that, shall we say, the government conveniently missed as well was that they recently had access to the EU Poverty Relief Fund, which they did not apply for or even decide to use. That was thousands of pounds that they could have helped to use, this community and others like it. They just decided not even to bother using. Instead, they forced Barnsley Council to just cut, resources that people in this town need. So, the experts and the food bank providers have spoken up, blaming the increasing use of the service squarely at the feet of the government. It's time they got a grip. The Trussell Trust cited the rollout of Universal Credit Scheme, surprise, surprise, which was intended to simplify what was thought to be a complicated benefits system, as a reason for the stats in Barnsley. And this isn't unusual. On this channel we've talked about this before, the fact that universal credit has universally led to rises in food banks, homelessness, you name it. In fact, you can chart, I can't remember which charity does it, it's one of the big ones, but they chart the rise of food banks with the rollout of universal credit. And you can even see areas where universal credit got rolled out and they go, there was one food bank, a year later there were 25. Homeless was at this level, universal credit rolls out, it's now at this level. And this is a problem that the government do not seem to care about tackling. So anyway, it continues. First-time claimants were made to wait 5 weeks before receiving a payment, and the new system is said to be increasingly driving referrals due to benefit delays, which include waiting for a first payment or having problems with the new claim. The Trussell Trust Chief Executive, Emma Reeve, said that we are seeing year upon year is more and more people struggling to eat because they cannot simply afford food. That is not right. What we know in this, we know the situation can be fixed. That's why we're campaigning to create a future where no one needs a food bank. And that's, this is the problem, part of the reason why people voted for Brexit, because idiots, leavers, blamed the EU on this situation in Barnsley. The reason why you can't afford food is when we leave the EU, food will be cheaper. If you're a family in Barnsley and someone says that to you, which way are you going to vote in the Brexit referendum? And it's not going to happen. We know food's going to increase in price when we leave. So that's going to make the situation even more worse, and more people are going to have to rely on food banks. That is absolutely unacceptable in this country. Our benefit system is supposed to protect us all from being swept into poverty. Universal credit should be part of the solution, but currently the 5-week wait is leaving many without enough money to cover the basics. As a priority, we are urging the government to end the wait for universal credit to ease the pressure on thousands of households. Ultimately, it is unacceptable that anyone should have to use a food bank in the first place. No charity can replace the dignity of having financial security. That's why in the long term, we're urging the government to ensure benefit payments reflect the true cost of living and work is secure, paying the real living wage to help ensure that we are all anchored from poverty. Susan Story, the manager of Barnsley Food Bank Partnership, appealed to the town's residents to continue donating items. We are in desperate need for items such as tinned tomatoes, milk and fish, she added. I've noticed quite a lot more families coming to us for help, and we're determined to continue being there for them. Universal credit has been blamed, but Barnsley as a whole has had to endure a lot of cuts to its services, but it's affecting all ages. And it's true. We only covered, 2 months ago, about the amount of cuts that Barnsley actually had and the amount of stuff it's had to do. This should be an absolute national embarrassment, but we're not. We're busy, trying to come up with a solution to Brexit when we know full well there is no solution to Brexit. It will only make things worse. So MPs should just go, yeah, we've fucked up, but you know what? We're not going to do Brexit because we know that it's going to make things even worse. So you know what? We're going to do something good and we're just going to bin it completely. And you've got to think that when Brexit starts to impact jobs in this region, which it ultimately will, we are going to see even more reliance on food banks in this area. Remember, Jacob Rees-Mogg thinks food banks are a wonderful expression of charity. And to echo the comments we already read in this article, people shouldn't have to rely on charity. They should be perfectly fine going, I'm good, I'm not going to fall into poverty, I can feed my children, I know there's going to be a roof over my head and their heads, and that they don't have to worry about that. But we are putting unnecessary worries on so many people in this country at the moment through universal credit. And to say that the system is meant to be simpler, it's an absolute catastrophe. But there you go.